Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're zooming in on a piece of technology that is literally so small and so ubiquitous that we completely take it for granted. I'm talking about that tiny little chip sitting inside your smartphone right now. We carry it everywhere, it connects us to the entire world, and yet most of us have absolutely no idea how much power it actually holds. We're going to demystify this incredible tech and see exactly how it evolved from a simple communications tool into the ultimate master key for our digital lives.
It's a great question, right? You probably use one every single day. Actually, you might have even popped one out with a paperclip once or twice. But if someone just stopped you on the street and asked what SIM actually stands for, would you know the answer? It's kind of one of those acronyms we all use but rarely ever think about. Well, let's uncover the invisible technology sitting right there in our pockets.
Section 1. The brain of your phone.
Look, technically speaking, your modern smartphone can do a whole lot on its own, like connecting to Wi-Fi or taking photos. But without a SIM, it can't actually be a phone. As tech experts often point out, a phone without a SIM card is basically like a human without a brain. So let's dive into why. SIM actually stands for Subscriber Identity Module, or sometimes Subscriber Identification Module. It is essentially a smart chip that serves as your digital ID on a cellular network. It's got its own microcontroller made of silicone, it's plated in gold to maintain contact with your device, and it is entirely responsible for three massive tasks: identification, authentication, and storage.
Think of your mobile network as a highly secure exclusive club. For identification, the SIM holds an IMSI, which is an International Mobile Subscriber Identity. That's basically your unique login ID, telling the network exactly who you are and what your subscription plan is. Next up is authentication. When you turn on your phone, the SIM uses a 128-bit key called a key, acting as your highly guarded, super secret password to verify you actually have permission to use the network. Finally, it handles storage. A standard SIM has about 64 kilobytes of memory, holding maybe 250 contacts and some SMS messages. And get this, here's a truly mind-blowing fact. 64 kilobytes? That's the exact same amount of memory used in the Apollo guidance computer for the first moon landings? No way, right? Just incredible.
And this whole setup brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens the literal second you power on your phone. You think the SIM doesn't just blindly connect to a cell tower. It has to prove you have permission to use the network. But it does this without ever actually transmitting your secret password over the air. It's all done through a digital handshake, a challenge-response protocol that happens completely invisible in the background.
So here's how this handshake goes down, step by step. Step 1. Your phone sends your IMSI to the network's authentication center, basically saying, hey, I'd like to access the network. Step 2. The network doesn't just say yes, it sends back a challenge, which is a random number and a token. Step 3. This is where the magic really happens. Your SIM takes its secret key password, does some incredibly complex math on that challenge, and sends back a response. Step 4. If the network gets the correct response, boom! Shared secret keys are generated to encrypt all your voice and data traffic. And the crazy part? All of this happens in milliseconds.
Section 2. From Plastic to eSIM. Now that we know how the software works, let's look at the hardware, because the physical evolution of the SIM card is just a fascinating journey of optimization. The very first SIM was developed in Germany back in 1991, and believe it or not, it was literally the size of a credit card. Obviously, as phones started getting smaller, fitting an entire credit card inside wasn't going to cut it. By 2010, the micro SIM became universal. Then, in 2012, we got the nano SIM, which basically stripped away all the useless plastic until it was just the tiny chip itself. And today, we're fully in the modern era of the eSIM. These are embedded SIMs, just tiny chips soldered directly onto your phone's logic board. They're cloud-based, rewritable, and they completely free up physical space inside your phone while offering way better protection against water and dust.
Section 3. Setup and Troubleshooting Basics.
Whenever you get your hands on this shrinking tech, setting it up usually involves a few key steps. First, you insert the physical chip, making absolutely sure the gold side is facing up. Or, if you're using an eSIM, you just scan a QR code provided by your carrier. Step 2 is absolutely crucial: verification. Because postpaid accounts involve billing you after the fact, carriers really need to ensure you are who you say you are. This involves a KYC, or Know Your Customer process, and televerification, like dialing 59059 if you happen to be on the Airtel network. Finally, you might need to enable it on your device. For instance, on an Android phone, you'd go to Settings, then Network and Internet, and just toggle Use SIM right on.
But what happens when things go sideways? We've all seen it, the incredibly frustrating "no SIM card detected" message. If this happens to you, here's some rapid-fire troubleshooting tips. Always start with the golden rule of IT. Just restart your device. If that doesn't work, pop out the tray and check the chip for any dust, loose connections, or physical damage. Next, try toggling airplane mode on and off to force a network reconnect. And if all else fails, you can reset your network settings or check for a device software update. Honestly, if none of that works, you might just have a faulty SIM that needs replacing.
Section 4. The SKT Security Breach.
So, we've talked about hardware filling on a personal level, but what happens when the massive network databases that store all your authentication credentials are compromised? I want you to look at this staggering number, 27 million. That is the number of international mobile subscriber identity records that were exposed in an unprecedented data breach.
In April 2025, SK Telecom, which is the largest mobile carrier in South Korea, suffered a massive breach. Malware compromised their home subscriber server. Now remember those secret 128-bit key passwords and IMSI logins we just talked about during the authentication handshake? This breach exposed roughly 9.8 gigabytes of that exact SIM-related data. It directly targeted the very authentication layer that keeps mobile communications secure. This is a critical, macro-level security risk.
Section 5. Flawed mental models.
Because mobile phone numbers in South Korea function as the single master key to banking, government services, and online commerce, a breach of this magnitude is incredibly dangerous. But here's where it gets fascinating. Researchers at the CHAI 2026 conference found a massive disconnect between how users perceive the SIM card and how it actually functions. Many people operate on a totally flawed user model. They think the SIM is just a passive piece of plastic used for making phone calls. But the technical reality? The SIM is a highly active central security layer. Because the internal operations of a SIM are completely invisible to us in our everyday use, people fundamentally underestimate the risk when those systems get compromised.
Now, to see just how wide this knowledge gap really is, listen to this specific quote from a participant in that study. When they were asked to draw and explain how a SIM card works, one older adult literally said, "The SIM in my ear absorbs the signals and delivers them to the brain. That way we communicate." It perfectly and honestly kind of beautifully humanizes just how opaque this technology is to the general public.
This lack of understanding led to what researchers call the awareness-action gap. It's a wildly fascinating psychological hurdle. Even though users were highly aware of the SKT breach, their response was incredibly passive. They perceived their own risk as practically zero. One user even valued their personal data at just 151, which is about 11 cents. There was also a strong sense of learned helplessness. People are just so used to hearing about data breaches that they assume big tech carriers will handle it. Because the SIM is tucked away inside the phone, out of sight literally means out of mind. Even though SKT offered free SIM replacements and security services, many users simply took absolutely no action at all.
Section 6. Rethinking our digital security.
This entire case study is a profound wake-up call, right? Technical security measures just aren't enough if human behavior and our basic understanding don't align with the technology itself. As we've seen today, the SIM card is far, far more than just a piece of plastic that gives you cellular bars. It is an active microcomputer performing invisible handshakes that secure your banking, your messages, and your very identity. So I'm going to leave you with this. If your SIM is truly the master key to your digital life, are you doing enough to protect it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, stay curious.